I mean, when you see little red dots all over your kid and you see that horrific moment, it will do something unsettling to you. It will create a visceral reaction. It will forever change you. It wasn't January 6th that changed. It wasn't the prosecution. It was the raid on my home. The raid on my home is what created who I am now. And they're going to answer for these things. I'm going to make sure of it if it's with my dying breath.
Welcome back to Going Rogue with Lara Logan. And my guest this week is one of my favorite people in the whole world, Treniss Evans, who you may know from taking a shot a fireball on January 6th in Nancy Pelosi's conference room, not office. But Treniss is not here. We'll talk a little bit about that. But really, he's here because of the work that he's doing right now. Everybody in the country at this point is familiar with Lawfare, which is the process by which people are using the legal system not for justice, but as a political weapon. Well, Treniss Evans, you are now working for American Rights Alliance. Their chief operating officer, I believe.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, and what's interesting about American Rights Alliance is this is one way that people are fighting back against lawfare, because you are helping a number of very interesting people, from James O'Keefe, who everybody knows, needs no introduction, O'Keefe Media Group, original founder of Project Veritas, to Tina Peters, also someone who needs no introduction, a hero who fought for all of us and got the only copy of a Dominion voting machine before it could be erased. They really don't like Tina for that, not to mention a Gold Star mom and so on. And then a third case that we're going to talk about today, which is really about parental rights and religious liberties, which goes to the heart for me as a mom of the heart of a lot of very important things today, which is really what happens to our children. Right? How do we protect them from a political movement that is wrapped up in sexuality and transgenderism, and how the Biden administration went after this mom? Really, you said it. I'm going to steal from you. How they prosecuted child trafficking under Joe Biden is a mom sending her child away to boarding school versus, actually prosecuting child traffickers, but. Anyway, that's by way of introduction. You are a fellow Texan, just up the road from me in Canyon Lake. And this is the most quiet I've ever seen you.
Well, I was letting you get all that intro out. Laura, you always have so much to say. The banter's always been good with you, that's for sure. We've had a great time over the years in the wake of such tragic incidents that we've been involved in and had so much interest in, and taken so much time to actually help people understand, correcting the false narrative of the Biden administration as it relates to January 6th.
Well, I do want to say, you are someone who has really fought for many of the J6s. I don't think people quite realize it. With Condemned USA, the organization that you created. And it was right here in Fredericksburg, Texas, where we first met, wasn't it?
Yeah, actually, no. It was in San Antonio.
San Antonio at the Reawakening event. Yes.
Mickey Willis Courage 19 Awards. That was that event.
That's right. And you were waiting to go on the stage, and I was going out on the stage, and we were both trapped there while someone was talking. And we started to chat, right?
Yeah.
And it was just a couple of minutes. But then you came down to Fredericksburg to meet with me.
You're still trying to figure out how it was that this guy was, who was this guy going on after me?
No, I just felt sorry for you because you had to follow me.
Because we had to listen to you drone on all that time.
That wasn't the first time.
Or the
it
last.
Probably won't be the last. Okay, now your mother is here. Hi, Mom.
Hi, Mom.
Who's also one of my favorite people. You want to come say hi, Mom? Yeah, come say hi.
Oh.
Come on, because I know your mother has been through hell and back because of you. You wonderful woman. I know I
can never thank you enough for all the work that you have done for my son, a J6er, and for all of the others. I'm deeply moved by your work, and I've always been by your body of work.
Thank you.
Always fighting for injustice.
Oh.
Well,
thank you both so much.
Thank you,
I
Mom.
just
She's been there.
know.
She
she's
backed
been there
this
every
thing.
step of the way.
Candy, you can't imagine what she's given.
I love her.
Oh.
I love her. Why are so many young people struggling to have babies today? Birth rates in the US are at record lows, and that's partly because testosterone levels are dropping all the time. According to some studies, T levels are roughly half of what they were 50 years ago. And if we don't reverse this trend, we could be looking at population collapse. And it's why we partnered with Chalk. They're a Patriot-owned supplement company, and their mission is to save mankind from extinction. They have something called the Male Vitality Stack, and it's been shown in clinical trials to boost your free testosterone by 87% in just 21 days. That is not just a statistic. You will feel it. And ladies, you'll be pleased to know it's not just for men. The Female Vitality Stack addresses just about every complaint a woman can have: stress, mood, hormones, energy, and focus. And it'll even help you keep up with your man. So go to chalk.com and use code LARA for 17.76% off your subscription. Cancel anytime. Or you can also call 50CHOQ3000 and tell them Lara sent you. You know, right now, we're a long way from where we were in the beginning with January 6th.
Wow.
I just remember for you remember what happened the first time that you came here to talk about January 6th?
Oh, yeah, I do. Well, when we were talking and, I just wanted to tell people what I knew and people couldn't listen, and you listened. A lot of people around the country. We had a lot of people.
Well, it was toxic.
Yeah.
It was literally like leprosy, right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, Republicans, conservatives did not want to touch it. They were all scared.
Well,
That's the truth.
And you set up an event, though.
Yes.
You set up an event.
At
and
a
had me
local
speak.
winery here.
Yeah.
And what did you do that I didn't like?
Oh, spoke for 3 hours of more than you?
No, it wasn't that. You apologized.
Oh, you're right. No, and I will tell you that was the moment that you said, look, you got to stop apologizing for that. What you did, going in the building and saying what you had to say. I think you told me stop apologizing.
Yeah, I said you stood up on behalf of everyone in the country. You stood for free and fair elections. You told people in the building not to touch anything and to behave. I mean, you didn't do anything wrong. What are you apologizing for? You exercise your First Amendment rights as an American, and that's what you're supposed to do.
Well, the narrative, what was going on, even had infected me, even though I knew knew something real, I knew the truth. Even though that I knew in my heart what it was, I saw how people looked at me. So it created a response, right? It created this visceral reaction where you're looking at people. And I never forget, like when I stood up to speak at that first event, people, man, the looks on their faces. And then getting up and walking out of the room, there's people turned their back on it, wouldn't listen. They had to get up and walk out of the room because they had been told what happened. And they said, well, I saw on TV, I saw what I saw, I know what happened in the story. And that was, so many people lived that way.
Yeah.
Until people like yourself and others that they trusted actually broke through.
Yeah, so it was David Summerall's StopHate.com, and there were many.
Oh, yeah.
His Glory TV, Chris Burgard and Pastor Dave, Scarlett.
Gosh. The advocates were many. General Flynn, really stood up for this.
Tarek Johnson.
And, think about that. The people that came out and exposed themselves, put themselves at risk. Tarek Johnson was one of them. Shane Lamond, the police officer, he's headed to prison in a couple of weeks if he doesn't get a pardon. 25 years of service to the Metro Police Department in D.C., and he's going to head to prison in just a couple. Yeah, so he's the one that testified for the Proud Boys. And when he came to testify, they said, if you testify, we could charge you. And they ultimately did. He's been sentenced, and he's scheduled to turn himself in for prison here in August.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
So this is
the Biden administration went after him, and the Trump administration's yet to come to the rescue. I have been on the phone with Ed Martin. I've been on the phone with Neil McCabe. I've been on the phone with Jared Weiss, who's now working there. As the New York Times wanted to have an expose. I'm proud of that. I worked hard to get Jared there, and I'm proud that Jared took that job. And we worked hard on that. The right people in the right place at the right time to unravel this injustice that took place. It's paramount to what has to be.
So this is one of the remarkable things really about your story is you're just a guy from Texas. You had a business, fairly successful, beautiful wife, Stephanie,
Yeah.
and you got your boys.
Yeah.
And you went to the Capitol to protest an election that we all know was stolen.
You're damn right it was.
And that's all about to come out, I think.
Yeah, more and more.
Right? But you were then targeted. And I want to talk a little bit about your story, but the amazing part to me was how you, in the midst of everything that you were going through, when you were under siege, you realized very quickly that most January 6 defendants didn't have the money or the resources or just the ability to get legal representation.
Lara, even if you could write the check, right?
Yeah.
You'd pick up the phone and you would call attorney after attorney after attorney, and they would say, oh, we're not handling that. We can't deal with January 6th. You would find people in the paper that were representing a murderer or a rapist or some crime of moral turpitude, burning down the orphanage or what have you, right?
Yeah.
And that attorney would tell you, oh, I'm sorry, I can't take January 6th cases. We're not doing those.
Yeah.
And you're going, what are you talking about? And so I'm trying to represent to them, look, I'm not even charged with violence or destruction or theft or property damage, none of these things. And they say, sorry, we're not touching January 6th.
It's
The
amazing.
insurrection.
The insurrection. That wasn't.
Well, Laura, make it make sense. You'll never make this make sense. The most armed populace on the face of the planet came to overthrow
The government with no weapons.
the largest military-industrial complex that ever existed, and they came without their rifles. Where are the rifles? You mean to tell me we came in the midst of children, and we came with grandmothers, and we came with plastic flagpoles and megaphones to overthrow the largest military-industrial complex on the planet? Give me a break.
With no plan, by the way, to how to hold the ground, how to run the new government. I mean, come on. It's the most pathetic thing ever. And how about Enrique Tarrio and the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers who weren't even present?
Yeah.
Who were actually, they had to pin the insurrection on someone.
Well,
right?
they stitched together a narrative. We know that. I mean, that story's getting it's like to all of us, I think it's almost tired, but I bet it's not tired of the people like Dominic Pizzola and Joe Biggs and others that are yet to receive their pardon.
Yeah, who's still living with a commutation, which, while it is, hugely significant that President Trump did that and got them out of
God bless him for that.
Jail.
But we need to take the next step now.
It has to be. It has to be because it's ridiculous. This is a completely false narrative. It was a cover-up. It was an operation that was staged to cover up a stolen election and go after Trump supporters. We all have a lot of choices for cell phone service, and it feels like there are new ones that are popping up all the time. But for me, there's only one company that stands in the gap for every American that believes freedom is worth fighting for. And that company is Patriot Mobile. The good news is you can switch to Patriot Mobile today without sacrificing quality or service. And if you're worried about coverage, don't be. Patriot Mobile uses all three major US networks. So if you have service in this country today, you'll have as good or better coverage with Patriot Mobile. And if you think switching is a hassle, it's not. You can keep your number, keep your phone, or upgrade if you want. Patriot Mobile has a team that is based in the US, will get you activated in minutes from the comfort of your own home. And if you're stuck in a contract or you owe money on your phones, don't worry. Patriot Mobile now has a contract buyout program. This is how we win, by aligning our spending with our values. Every dollar we spend matters. So go to patriotmobile.com/Lara or call 972-PATRIOT and use promo code Lara, that's LARA, just to get a free month of service. Switch today, that's patriotmobile.com/Lara or call 972-PATRIOT.
Few people know Lawfare better than President Trump himself. He lived it, he experienced it, he's looked into the faces of evil, the Jack Smiths and others. He's looked into the eyes of the Select Committee and these people that created these false narratives, delivered this to the American public, and worked with the media, their media lapdogs to perpetuate said false narrative.
Okay, so this is the thing about you, Treniss, though, that I love. I really feel like represents the true American spirit, because you weren't politically connected either in the state of Texas or in Washington,
Lara,
D.C.
before Donald Trump came on the scene, I was politically agnostic. Like I just said, there's both parties, they're screwing us.
Yeah.
I'm not interested. I don't care what they have to say. I didn't even vote. I just didn't get involved. I just stayed out of it.
That's crazy.
And there was finally a guy came along. He runs 16. I didn't vote for him in 16. He comes along and I see what he has in his first administration. And I go, holy crap, somebody that's actually delivering on their promises.
Right.
This is consistent with what I want. He speaks like an American citizen. He says things that aren't like the typical pundit that or the political sphere of things that are usual, and makes empty promises. And we're going to solve everything, and it's going to be great.
We're going to end world hunger. We're here to serve.
Roads and bridges and this and that, and we're going to take care of veterans, and we're going to do all this, which is all lies and malarkey, and it always is. And then finally a guy shows up, and he's on the scene, and he's doing it. I watch that, and I'm like, I can get behind this. I believe in you. This is somebody I can believe in. And because you actually tried against all odds, even when we had the House, we had this, and we had everything, and he couldn't get things done because they subverted him, just like they're subverting him now, where they won't let him have the sessions. They're going to make sure they meet every so often so that we can't have the appointments, in the dormant session. It's insanity.
So that's what I mean that is so interesting about the American spirit, because you weren't, no matter what they threatened you with, no matter what they did to you, no matter what they threw at you, you were not going to bow.
Well, look, I want to tell you, I wrestled with that. I got to be honest, right? It hit me and I wrestled with it. I know the moment that all fear left. And when all fear left was definitely, I was in a church. I was at Word of Faith Fellowship, Lee Valentine, and I was sitting in that church and I watched the kids dancing through the aisles. And I had thought about my own kids and they weren't there, and I wrestled long and hard about what I had to do. That was the moment. That was the moment where all fear left, because I said, if I don't do this now, if I don't do what past generations have failed to do, if I don't stand up on my principles, on my morals, on what I believe, if I don't do that right here and now, then I'm nobody to myself. I can never look at myself again and call myself a patriot, or look at myself again and call myself a man, because I'm leaving it to the children of tomorrow to deal with the things I'm too afraid to do today.
And what were you facing at that time? What was that decision?
They wanted to stick me in jail. I think, they were asking for some time, and it wasn't that bad. But Steve Metcalf was my attorney at the time, and he was like, look, just shut up and go with the thing at the sentencing. And I was like, oh no, that's not going to happen.
Did they want you to plead?
Yeah, I did. I took the plea deal because I was facing the 1512, the infamous 1512 obstruction of Congress charge that was ultimately overturned by the Supreme Court. Yeah, the felony obstruction of Congress, because they had to dream something up to make this horrific, right? And they offered me finally the misdemeanor, but only after, remember, I'd captured a federal human trafficking fugitive who escaped from prison, and then they wanted to cover that up as well.
Yeah, that was a totally unrelated, random thing, a guy that had done some work for you.
Yeah,
and you saw that he was wanted, and so you helped them capture him.
Yeah, this individual. Yeah, so I was actually responsible for the capture,
and they just wanted to erase that.
Oh, they wanted to pretend like that never happened. that Matthew Graves and the others, that everything had to run through the committee all the way up.
Matthew Graves, who was the U.S. attorney in D.C.
Everything had to run through that committee.
He was
Jocelyn
Mr. January
Valentine,
6th.
Matthew Graves.
Demon.
Look, their time will come. Whether they answer on this earth or beyond, it will come.
Well, I have to say it, but Matthew Perna was a January 6er who killed himself because of the pressure that Matthew Graves' Department of Justice put him under.
Don't forget Christopher Stanton was the first, right? That's the first death that we can attribute to January 6th of the defendants that happened after the fact. And then, you now have over 20 deaths associated with January 6th, and most of the world never knows, but they've never gone to see Stop Hate and the website there and watch the 22 death story. There's so many of them.
Yeah, stophate.com for anyone who wants to see that. 22 deaths, right?
Yeah.
David Summerall's done a lot of great work. Oh, and one of the big people who's done so much work, Gary
McBride.
Oh, yeah.
I started working with Gary in 21. Gary McBride endlessly did this to his own detriment.
Yeah.
He lost his family, he lost his home, because he had seen enough. He'd seen the injustice. He saw it. He's the one that uncovered. Gary McBride is definitely, unequivocally, the guy that broke the Roseanne Boylan story. Had it not been for Gary McBride catching what happened with Roseanne Boylan.
Figuring out that Roseanne Boylan, who died on January 6th, who they tried to, sort of pass it off as an overdose death just because she had struggled with addiction.
The vicious beating that Lila Morris delivered on January 6th
on
the Capitol steps that they paraded around as a hero at the Super Bowl.
And Gary McBride, he was the one who found that footage of her beating Roseanne.
Yeah, he gave it to Kara Castronova. Kara broke
from the Gateway
story.
Pundit.
Yeah, so it broke. That's how the story broke. But Gary's the guy that found it. And after that, he was like a man possessed. He could never escape the injustice that he had seen, because he heard what they said, how Roseanne Boylan died.
I know it's funny. I think of Gary as a J6er, but he wasn't even there on January 6th.
No, he was at home in
But
Texas.
It's been his whole
Another
life ever
Texan.
since. Another Texan. There
Imagine
you
that.
go.
David Summerall, a Texan. Gary McBride, a Texan. Laura Logan, myself. The list goes on of the amount of people that came from Texas that fought back against this.
So, okay, before we go on to American Rights Alliance and the legal work that you're doing there, let's just, let's just clarify for the audience, because I do think this is an important part of your story, is how you're the guy in the stupid yellow beanie. Okay. Yeah. It was a really bad outfit you chose that day, I got to be honest. However,
I kind of liked it.
However, it fortunately has the distinction of making you easily recognizable.
I'm standing
you got
by
the
my
blue
wardrobe
bullhorn.
choice.
You got the blue bullhorn and the yellow beanie. And what's so significant about that is I know your story well. I know how you went into the Capitol. You told everybody not to touch anything. You did a shot of Fireball in Nancy Pelosi's conference room. And then you went out. And that's when you were on the steps afterwards, right? Late in the afternoon, after 4 o'clock?
Yeah, 4:17.
Right. But the January 6th Select Committee did what with that footage?
So the Select Committee uses that to their benefit to perpetrate the false narrative. And you got to remember the Colorado ballot trial when they released it on June 9, 2022, and then later in the Colorado ballot case or Norma Jean Anderson et al., they used that. It was all built into their narrative to suggest that Donald Trump started the insurrection by his dog whistle, which I conveyed to the crowd at 2:24 in the afternoon.
Which was what?
Which was a total lie.
No, but what did you actually say?
Oh, it was Donald Trump's tweets. I was reading them. They were coming, they were coming over Twitter, right? And he was using somebody else's Twitter, and I was reading them. This gentleman approaches me, he's like, "You got to read this." I stood on the steps with a megaphone, read the entirety of these tweets, and what they do is they selectively edit and clip the ones that they want, and that only one they had was that Mike Pence didn't have the courage to do what should have been done to correct, blah, 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 right? So this story, but that's what they use. That's what they run, and they change and alter the timestamp and stick 2:24 on it.
Yeah, and that was important because?
Well, because it enabled them to say that that's Donald Trump created that, and they showed the break of the line, and then they showed that. But what really happened is that was the time where they misfired the canister of obnoxious gas into their own police line, and that's what broke down the police line. But they clip away from that. They selectively edit the footage to make sure.
And so just so people understand, so really what the January 6th Select Committee did when they made their fake, movie that was supposed to be
June 9, 2022.
Yeah, supposed to be what happened is they took something that happened late in the afternoon, long after the violence of the West Tunnel and all the rest of it, and they moved that up. And they created a fake timeline where they said, okay, here's Donald Trump speaking, and here's his guy, which was you at the Capitol. You'd never met.
I was the guy that started the insurrection, according to
in your yellow beanie.
And ABC producer James Goldston
Yeah.
and the Select Committee. Somebody along the line, somewhere in there, absolutely fraudulently edited this, created the narrative, and delivered it to the American public, to which they
and made
then
it
believed.
look as if you were acting on Donald Trump's orders and you triggered that insurrection at the Capitol.
Right.
And the worst part is you were
There's
captured.
a worst part? I can't. I'm lost. I'll never know what
No,
the worst
part is this. There are so many cameras at the Capitol. You are on the security cameras. They all knew exactly what the timestamp was.
Yeah.
So when they altered that timestamp, they knew exactly what they were doing. And they just don't care who they destroy.
They didn't care. They figured they're covered under speech and debate clause. They can say or lie and do whatever they want to the American people. Shocking newsflash, Congress has lied to the American public.
So, okay, so you actually served time in prison, in jail for your crime.
Yeah, I got to go to a maximum security federal institution.
I mean, we're laughing now, but I did speak to you a couple of times because the judge allowed you to do it over several
weekends.
Yeah.
Well, I was supposed to do 20 days. I had this all had to do with the outcome because it was proven that they eventually emailed and provided the information that I did in fact capture the fugitive. The judge was furious that they'd been lying to her, right?
Yeah.
That came out. Then don't forget later the FBI is exposed for trying to force me to work for them in violation of that judge's court order that she wouldn't even hear. Had it been the other way around, I'd have gone to prison for sure. But
then
anyway.
you had someone else try to get you to traffic weapons across state lines. They tried everything to get you to mess up because you were only charged in the end with a misdemeanor, but you did torture the judge by talking.
No, convicted of a misdemeanor. I pled guilty to the misdemeanor. Knowingly entering or remaining in a restricted building or grounds.
Yes.
How dare I?
And you did torture the judge with a very, very
yes.
long
Dabney.
defense.
Hours of that, and I think there's probably two people that really enjoyed that, and then there was people. Well, a lot of people really enjoyed it, and those that really regretted.
How long was it?
Hours long the first time, and then it went more the second time. I think the judge. Well, it's funny. I think you once said that I lulled her into
into a coma.
Yeah. Look, Judge Friedrich is the same judge that's holding right now Dan Wilson. She's the reason that Dan Wilson, who's been issued a pardon, and Ed Martin, as acting U.S. attorney, stepped up and said that the pardon applies. So that situation right now is why Dan Wilson's still sitting in prison, rotting 2 months later.
Because of that judge.
Dabney Friedrich.
That's disgusting.
Don't forget who her husband is. Her husband is the same one that got the Alaska State Senator Ted Stevens with the false narrative, and then they later dropped it, which Emmett Sullivan, the judge, was a part of.
Oh, Emmett Sullivan he's a piece of work.
Yeah. Oh, I thought you were going to say what he really is, but okay.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and he's the one that even after the Department of Justice and the Attorney General admitted that they had no case against Mike Flynn, that they'd manufactured the case, he refused to drop it.
No, another man of courage, right? Mike Flynn.
Another man of courage.
He's been symbolic in leadership and the idea of how to respond to this kind of lawfare and what to do. And I think it drove him. Look where he is now. He can't stop. He just keeps coming for them. And these things that were once called conspiracy theories and the McCabe's and all the nonsense.
Now the evidence is out.
All the Russiagate and all the nonsense, Russian collusion, all this nonsense. And now where are we? How's that working out for him?
But what you did in creating this organization, Condemned USA, and then representing all these people, how many defendants were you able to assist with legal defense?
Well, we spoke to at different times and worked with either the family member of over 600 defendants throughout the course of the 4 years in various stages, right? And some of it was as simple as helping someone they needed money to get to the trial, right?
Yeah.
To be at their son's trial. So we helped mothers that we didn't really ever engage in legal defense. But hundreds of the cases, we were involved in legal defense through a number of the attorneys that we worked with, and that was awesome. I mean, Roger Roots was on the front line of that, George Pallas on the front line, Jonathan Gross on the front line.
And it wasn't easy finding those guys.
No, and then what's funny is once we found them, it was like, hey, I need you to take another one and another and another, and we just kept laying them on them, and they couldn't say no because it's like, okay, this is another injustice. Yeah. So those men, God bless those men. God bless what they did.
God bless those men. I have to say, because, I mean, you and I were in contact throughout, and I called you many times because people would bring their stories to me, and, or people were being charged 2 years later, 3 years later, and they were terrified, and families were terrified. There was a woman in her late 60s, early 70s in this town who was charged.
How would you not be terrified when the federal government is using the Joint Terrorism Task Force? When they show up, they're whining about, I love this, illegals broke into our country and they stand where they stand today. And people are whining about the idea that there's masked men coming. Has anyone not watched the videos of the Joint Terrorism Task Force raiding 1,600 legal American citizens? Have these same people not recognized, as I listen to these lunatic Democrats, they're having to drink from the same place as the commode and where they defecate? I'm like, what do you think prison is? Have you never been there? Suddenly the Democrats don't know what a prison looks like or how that works or what every January 6th was subjected to. And they want to complain about the conditions for the illegals that have broken into the country. But they didn't care about 1,600 American citizens who were being bludgeoned with lawfare, which is exactly why we created Condemned USA.
Like the guys who pointed weapons at your son's head.
Yeah.
At 14 years old.
Yeah. I mean, when you see little red dots all over your kid and you see that horrific moment, it will do something unsettling to you. It will create a visceral reactions. It will forever change you. It wasn't January 6th that changed me. It wasn't the prosecution. It was the raid on my home. The raid on my home is what created who I am now. And they're going to answer for these things. I'm going to make sure of it. It fits with my dying breath.
And your son is such a lovely young man.
He is. Tristan's an awesome kid.
He really is.
He really is doing great. It's amazing what he's come through.
And your poor wife has been long suffering because really, when they picked a fight with you, you took it on completely.
Headlong. I was never going to back down.
No.
There's not one ounce of quit in me.
No. Wow. Thank goodness for your mom standing at your side the whole time.
Oh, I couldn't have done it without her.
No, I know you couldn't.
My mom was a rock and an immovable force in this that was always there.
And not even a Republican. I'm just saying it wasn't, for political reasons at all.
No, we were never. This was about, look, well, this is a great misunderstanding or another narrative control scenario that we all came there and we demanded that Donald Trump be put in office. That was never the case for me. And I never talked to anyone that felt that way. It was about, we wanted a meaningful review. We were tired of the roller coaster. We were tired of the nonsense that had been provided time and time and time again. Oh, we got another court case and the judge refuses to hear it. Donald Trump never lost any court cases. They never had a trial. These were all
they
refused to hear. It was either you didn't know how many gumballs were in the jar, or you didn't know what date the gumballs went in and what date they came out.
Yeah,
it was
they
all
found
nonsense.
any little detail to get out of having to hear the cases.
It was
to give them
all a
time
lie.
to destroy the evidence and crush resistance. No, there's another one. Okay.
Yeah, there's one.
Yeah.
I know.
Well, to give them time to
We need to hang
crush.
a bug zapper back here.
To give them time to get rid of the evidence or crush any resistance. Because remember, you weren't even allowed to question the results of the 2020 election. Somehow, in the United States of America, it became an act, literally a criminal act to say, I'm not sure that about the election results.
But all the while, I see constant communication now traveling on social media, and it certainly doesn't seem to be shadow bound or suppressed now, where you see these people are out there saying the 2024 election was rigged. Donald Trump didn't really win; he's not the legitimate president. I see it all over social media. But those statements would always have community notes or moved down.
You'd get
There's no
censored completely. Some people would get blocked.
Yeah, you get your account taken down.
Yes.
But this can be said. It's always a two-tier system. It's been a two-tier system. It's a total two-tier system where they don't care about the truth. They don't care about the facts. Don't let that interfere with their narrative.
Okay, so you're still fighting for J6s. Dan Wilson is one. And
we have Benjamin Martin sitting out. You have Edward Kelly. Recently, you saw an FBI whistleblower just yesterday finally released a statement that says that the FBI targeted him and made things up. It's literally an FBI agent's come forward and said this. And Edward Kelly's doing life in prison on this other supposed charge.
And that's the other thing they've done is add fruit of the poisonous tree charges, right? To muddy the waters.
Absolutely. So this is what Friedrich's done, Judge Friedrich in D.C., right? So the activist under the robe, Judge Friedrich. And she's a disgusting and inhumane individual that should absolutely, should repent, but she should be removed. All of these people, Beryl Howell, Emmett Sullivan, Judge Friedrich, the list goes on. Colleen Kohler-Catelli, I can name judge after judge after judge. Kelly, Sullivan, all of them, right? Emmett Mehta. They should all be impeached. But we have spineless Republicans, so-called Republicans, trans-publicans, as we might better call them, right?
Yeah.
That people want to call
like
them
that,
rhinos.
actually,
Yeah,
trans-publicans.
trans-publicans.
I'm going to borrow that if that's okay.
You may actually
Thank
stole
you.
it from somebody else, so it was on loan anyway. So listen.
Mine now.
Yeah, they take it. So here we go. In the sense of this, these people don't want to hold impeachments. And you know why they would blamed it on the Darrell Ices and the Ken Bucks. Well, guess what? These people aren't there anymore. Now we've gotten rid of them. So what now? What's the new excuse for the House Judiciary that was founded in 1807 with one of the explicit pillars being to rein in these Title III, Article III judges and have impeachments if necessary when they operate outside the conduct of the robe or the expectation, when they operate with impropriety? Where are these people? Where are these courageous Republicans that are all coming to save us, that operate on our side? And it shouldn't be a Republican or a Democrat issue. It should be that we abused lawfare. This happened. And these judges were complicit.
And once you create this as a standard, everybody's affected.
Well, they don't like, here's a great standard for you that they don't like. You got 111A with the congresswoman up in New Jersey who's bustled by the officers, right? She did far more than many of the January 6th defendants that were charged with the same charge that did years in prison. Yet here she is up here screaming bloody murder about Alina Habba, prosecuting her for 111A. Welcome to the way you guys have decided that it works.
Yeah.
So there's a solution to
They don't
that.
like
We'll
it when
talk
it's
more about
applied to them.
Yeah, oh no, we have an unequal application of the law, and it's been that way for a long time. And as long as it standardizes that way, then they're just fine with it.
And the one thing that I is really important to me to point out actually is how many J6s, including Joe Biggs and Enrico Tarrio and all those guys who feel so strongly about the people they left behind. Because there were a lot of guys in there who, are victims of malicious prosecutions. Sure, there are legitimate criminals that are in there and they deserve to be in there. But the way our judicial system has been applied is an absolute affront to to us
So,
as a
Lara,
civilized nation.
We in the United States of America, we are the country number 5 in line per capita of actually imprisoning the most citizens. Number 5 in the nation, or I'm sorry, around the world. Number 5, the land of the free imprisons more citizens than per capita than any number of nations that you would look at and think that it would be a deplorable thing to look at, right? That should disturb people. And we start looking at the judiciary. This is the beauty of January 6th to me. This is what I say is this. Had we have not had a look through this lens that magnified the judiciary as it did for January 6th, had we have not had this look, had it have just been the one-offs like the Michael Flynn's and others and Ted Stevens and the stories we can relate to back through history, but when they did it in mass, when they got greedy and they did it in mass and they did it to so many, it became apparent. Now it's abundantly apparent to the American citizen that our judiciary is a corrupt and captured operation that has to have a total reform. We saw what they did to President Trump. We've seen what they've done to others. If you don't take this opportunity, what happened at January 6th is a total loss. There can be some good come from this, a silver lining, and that is the reform of our judiciary through impeachments and holding these people accountable that operated with bias, that operated with impropriety. We know it happened. It's right there on the record. 2 different judges that were not my judge suggested that I took part in an insurrection. Insurrection is a crime, a U.S. code. You don't have somebody in and try them for jaywalking and then call them a murderer, because murder is a different crime. That judge can say you're stupid. He can say you're a moron. They can say all kinds of things at sentencing. But you can't use the words.
You can't accuse them of a crime they've never been charged of.
Yes, and that's exactly what they did. They called it an insurrection, and it became the narrative, and that's the problem. These judges know that they can't do this. That's impropriety, and you got to set an example, and you got to strike down this kind of assault or affront to our judicial system.
So the other thing that January 6th exposed is people like the 65 Project and Michael Teeter, who are part of this Media Matters for America, David Brock, Knight Foundation, Ford Foundation, Tides Foundation.
And all of these, GWU and Columbia University.
Right, Crew, Citizens.
Citizens Responsible Ethics
these
in
organizations
Washington.
that really are an assault on American society. Because the 65 Project under Michael Teeter, set up by Noel Meissen and David Brock. Noel Meissen, who's still going after President Trump. And they go after any attorney who represents anyone
it's about
from
sanctions.
J6.
It's about making, they want to hang people on, like this picture, the Select Committee and the DOJ wanted to hang people on the wall like Maoists do as the January 6th community. This is what happens if you speak up about elections. We'll show you, right?
Yeah.
While the left can go out and burn the cities and do what they want. You got January 20, 2017, which is the only date in the Constitution, by the way, that says that is a formal date that has to happen at 12 noon, where you have to actually have the exchange of power, changeover power, as they like to call it, for the president, right?
Yeah.
The inauguration has to take place at that time. January 6th is not such a date. There is not a date that is prescribed. It's a suggested date. That's a ceremonial process, as the Democrats would have it. But however, even more times in our history that date became apparent, that JFK and others throughout history, that process did affect or change the outcome of a presidential election to codify the right answer that was the will of the people, which is what January 6th was about. People wanted a meaningful review. They didn't want Donald Trump installed. They wanted a meaningful review.
They wanted the results sent back to the states.
As the states were calling for, state legislators were saying, we have new information. We're looking at something different.
And we want to investigate. And there's a I think 100 days provided for.
They could have
under the
done all kinds
Constitution,
of
where
things.
you have a period of time where you review the results and then you report back.
That's right.
And that, by the way, is the only thing that didn't happen on January 6th, was what the protesters wanted.
How convenient.
And everything that they said that the protesters were trying to, stop the election being certified, and, all of that went ahead.
Yeah. Well, and interestingly enough, I'll make one point to that. We had members of the House and members of the Senate, which was the minimum requirement, right? You have to have one member of the Senate, members of the House come forward and say they wanted to review, and that recreated the recess for the review that could last 2 hours, 6 states, 2 hours per state. That's 12 hours. I was thinking we'd be out there till 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, because they already said they were going to do it. But then after the horrible events of January 6th took place, which don't confuse the truth with the narrative, right?
Yeah.
So after those so-called events took place, you had a situation where the individuals that said they were going to do this because they had meaningful and credible reasoning and evidence to do so, then abandoned that process. Why did they abandon the process? It wouldn't have mattered if a bomb hit the Capitol. It wouldn't have mattered if, there was mass genocide that day. That was still their duty under their oath of office and what they said. So why didn't they follow through? I have that question for those people still today.
Well, you know why. They didn't follow through because the staged violence that they incited was deliberately staged to prevent that conversation from taking place.
Well, there's a lot of questions.
Because they didn't want anyone to hear that evidence. They didn't want anyone to present concerns, and the Republicans didn't want to be shown, right? Because they knew then that they would have to vote.
If the American people were ever had to face the truth of what really happened there that day, if that ever comes out and who was really responsible to what level, I think it's going to be something that will be shocking, but not any more shocking probably than COINTELPRO or what we've done to topple other governments or the shadow governments that we've operated. It's not going to be any more shocking than these events. I think it's going to be more close to home because they haven't seen it at that level.
Yeah.
But, you can go to COINTELPRO, Tuskegee Airmen, et cetera, down the line, event after event. Oh my gosh, our government's corrupt and it's done horrible things to the people. Oh, who should be shocked at this point?
Yeah, it's just that this one is happening in our lifetimes on our watch.
There you go.
Yeah, and there's so many families that were just torn apart.
Look at how many people lost their homes, lost their businesses. They've lost everything. They have to be made whole.
None of that has been restored.
No, they have to be made whole. There's civil suits. When you hand out money, $4.3 million to the January 2017 people, when you hand out money to the January 2017 people at $4.3 million of suits that were waged by the ACLU, and those people who literally firebombed police, they threw Molotov cocktails, Class A fireworks at police, they did these things. They brought weapons. They flipped over cars. They burned. We all remember the images of Donald Trump's inauguration as D.C. was on fire. This nation's capital was ablaze, and we saw the smoke and the horror.
Attacking the Secret Service.
And you're like, oh my gosh, this is happening here in the United States. And that wasn't an insurrection.
No.
But on the date of the actual transition of the so-called power, as they like to think of it, which I think of it as representation, right? Not power, but that's how it's described even by the media because they get caught up in their own ideas, right? It's not about power. It's about representation. And that's where the misconception starts and ends.
So your work really on with January 6th is what led to you taking on this responsibility at American Rights Alliance.
Well, some people have suggested that Peter Tickton was kind of Johnny-come-lately to January 6th. That's not the truth, as you well know.
Peter Tickton, who was the President Trump's attorney for many years.
Yeah, so...
And an old friend.
Old friend, yeah. They went to school together. They went to New York Military Academy together. They were roommates all 4 years.
And I know Peter.
So trusted soul.
I'm a big fan.
And after,
he's awesome.
Yes, Peter's great. He's one of my favorite people. So after January 6th took place... Trump knew that they were coming for him. It was obvious, right? In a way they had never come for him before and not in a way you could have foreseen. So after that, he needed someone he trusted to be central repository for everything January 6th. He needed someone he trusted to review who was doing what with his legal efforts, right? And defenses, as they were coming down the line, the talks were pretty nasty, treason and all these other nonsensical ideas. For making a speech, for saying peacefully and patriotically make our way down to the Capitol. And whatever anyone else did was, on them, right? So Here we go. So Peter Tickton was that central repository. I started working with Tickton in 21. We started talking. I started presenting people to him, sharing information, sharing video, sharing idea, telling him what was happening in these cases. And over time, Peter and I developed a relationship that was, very strong. And when numerous cases came down, when they came at Donald Trump with the idea they were going to remove him from the Colorado ballot, it was Peter Tickton that I called and said, this guy, Scott Gessler, that's doing this case, I don't know if he doesn't know. I don't know if he's ill-informed. I don't know what the deal is, but we've got to get to the bottom of this, and I got to get the information there. Mark Mosier, who is at Harvey Dillon's firm, I also called. Before the day was out, Scott Gessler was calling me and saying, what can I do? Okay, what is it you have? And I was like, well, the fraud that they played on for the court at opening arguments was nothing more than a fraud on the court. That select committee video that was done is a fraudulent narrative, and they had a responsibility to review that before they presented it as evidence in this courtroom.
Which is the video that altered the timestamp on you.
Yes, we're right back to that. But that was just one of the many problems with that video, right?
Yeah, there were many fraudulent things in that video.
Yeah, but it went to mainly the idea that the 224 narrative that Donald Trump started the insurrection, and I was the mouthpiece for the start of the insurrection, right? absolute insanity. I wasn't even there yet. I wasn't even at that spot. It's just absolutely absurd. So, and the FBI asserts that, right? In my own documents, they're saying that's not the case.
Yeah, it wasn't hard to prove. That
No,
they were
it was
lying.
so easily
And in
proven.
fact, what they did when you went after them is they removed
Oh yeah, the
timestamp, right?
They dumped the part where I was in it, right? They dumped that. They just played the audio. They got rid of the timestamp in the video. Yeah, so that was the big change. The select committee actually went back and changed their so-called, and they said that they entered this into evidence. Benny Thompson's words were, "I now enter into the evidence the facts and events of January 6th." And
the facts and events.
it was
they knew was a
unconscionable
lie.
because he knew it was a lie. And they even went back to change it after I hit him with the lawsuit in the Fifth Circuit. So, look, it's a long story, and we can have to dig way down in that. We did a documentary years ago that we never got out, but that story's in there.
Well, it's in your book, right? Wait.
Well, yeah.
Show your book.
Oh, yeah, the story's in the story is in the book. So, yeah, it's
Call it
there.
Insurrection, comrade.
So,
Nice, it's catchy.
well, I tell you that the book. Well, because only a commie could call that an insurrection, right? It was about a narrative. So, actually, it was wonderful. I got these two wonderful people, one to endorse the book, one to do the foreword.
You did?
I did.
And who was that?
Well, of course, General Flynn did the, and then that other lady's name, I can't remember, mildly attractive, blonde woman. Let's see, I'm trying to think. Lara something.
Journalist?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but thank you. Look, I really want to thank you for that. That was great. The fact that you did the foreword and what you said about the January 6 people
Well, it was
and what
all
they
true.
experienced. No, it was great. So thank you for that. I think it meant a lot to all of us that you did that.
Well, if people want to know more about it, they can read your book, right? Let's see.
They should.
Call it Comrade. Call it Insurrection, Comrade by Treniss Evans III. You heard it here, people. Read all about it. Read all about it.
Well, you know what's great is I was excited that I put it actually made bestseller on Amazon and
This is very good. Yeah, because
Barnes and Noble.
you know what all that means is that many people, even when they're not armed with the facts or the truth, they instinctively know they're being lied to and they want to know the truth.
Yeah.
Okay, so isn't Evan Turk also at American Rights Alliance with you?
Yeah.
Another
So
former Trump attorney?
Yeah, so Evan Turk, and he had a career on Wall Street before he
Yeah.
became an attorney. So he does a lot of financial planning, does a lot of work. He's a litigator.
Yeah.
Evan was actually, Don Jr. wanted to do something. And there's a story about where the money came from for the startup money. Remember when at Butner, right, where they attempted to assassinate President Trump?
Yeah.
Ironically, the only place that CNN ever covered a full rally and a live
Isn't
rally.
that amazing? They have such good news instincts.
Yeah, you would call it news. That's funny. That's a good word. Anyway, so where that
Didn't care about any Trump rallies, but boy, were they well positioned at Butler.
Yeah, boy, they were right there for it.
Amazing.
So the fight merchandise that came from that, Donald Trump Jr. took the net proceeds from that and donated it and said, I don't want to profit from this event. I want to do something for the American people because that's who my father was fighting for. He wasn't fighting for himself. He was telling the American people, we're going to fight, right?
Yeah.
So he said, this is a way to do this. I have an idea. And he gifted that money to Evan Turk to start the American Rights Alliance, to fight lawfare against anyone that was experiencing lawfare, civil rights abuses, parental rights, religious liberties, on down the line.
That's pretty amazing.
So Evan gets it started. He calls Peter Tickton, which is a natural choice, right? Peter Tickton, a well-known litigator, and says, Peter, here's what I have. I have this money. We're going to start this. He involves some others. And next thing you know, they had it all built, right? And it's funny is it looked a lot like what we built at Condemned USA. And Evan and I not really knowing one another, Peter says, you got to talk to Treniss. And
he's I got this really difficult
astute,
little guy out of
good-looking
Texas.
fella. Yeah.
He's a real pain in the you-know-what. He's the problem that just won't go away.
Yeah, no. So
He's not a lawyer, but he has studied the law, actually, which is just kind of amazing because you've been involved in so many legal cases now.
I mean, you can't help but learn. I mean, I think it was forced into me. Whether I chose to learn or not, it was going to be there. So Peter and I, so I met with them, and I was doing an event down in Florida, and Evan came down and we met. We kind of really found out that we have kind of kindred spirits about saving the country and defending people, and that was consistent with what Peter and I had already knew about one another. Evan and I kind of felt things out. He made a great offer to me and said, I want you to come over here and do this. And, You know, it's funny, Lara, I say great offer because it's a fantastic pay cut from what I've done my whole life.
I was just thinking that as you said it, I was like,
Yeah.
a great offer.
Yeah.
It is a great offer because I know you believe in the work.
Yeah.
But it is still a pay cut from your other pay cut.
Yeah, pay cut from my pay cut. So
Because working on this all these years, I mean, sure, there was at one point your business was like, hello, do you remember us?
yeah, thankfully my brother stepped in to take on that role, and I'm really thankful that he's going to take that role on. So I'm away from that now, and he can do that. But reality says this. Evan and I hit it off for a reason. It worked out, and then we came to an agreement, and they offered me the position. Originally, they came to me just to talk to me about being a spokesman for their organization. And before you knew it, after Evan and I got together and met, and Peter and I talked more, they offered me the position as the chief operating officer of the organization. And they said, okay, what do we do next? And I said, okay. So we got into that and I started looking at websites and revamping what we were doing, some of the little things, right? That really weren't cataclysmic as to what was going to happen with the organization. And within a week, I got a call from Tina Peters. And Tina Peters called me and said, Treniss, I have all these great lawyers. I don't know what I want to do with my case. I need help to sort it out. There's varying opinions. What do you think? I was like, wow, this is heavy, right? Because I'd written Tina's amicus brief for her appellate case back in February with John Mosley. John Mosley and I worked on that together. I don't say just me. I want to take credit. But you got to hear this, Lara. So
I just want to remind people that Tina Peters was the secretary. She was in Colorado, in a district in Colorado.
Clerk, yeah.
She was the county clerk.
Mesa County.
In Mesa County. And that was a Republican county, and it went Republican. So just so people understand, it had been Republican for a long time.
Yeah, it's a very red county.
But there was something that happened that just Tina didn't trust, which was when Dominion came in and they said that they needed to do I don't know what it was, a reset or whatever it was.
Well, they had a
machines.
Trusted build.
That's right, trusted build.
The trusted build, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's wonderful language, right? Like just like Citizens for Responsible Ethics in Washington when it's run by Norm Eisen.
Yeah, they always come up with the words that mask their real intent. And so what happened is Tina got somebody in there who did a forensic image of the machines before the trusted build.
Consistent with her duty to preserve all election data from a federal election. Consistent with her duty.
But they got her because he came in using someone else's badge.
Well, here's the problem.
Whatever. They were going to find some excuse to get her.
Lara, there's something called good faith. She went to Jenna Griswold in advance and said there's a problem.
The Secretary of
She tried
State
to
in
go,
Colorado.
right. She tried to take this up the ladder.
Yeah.
And then she believed that there was a problem. She believed that
Jenna
there was
Griswold,
wrongdoing.
who's funded by George Soros.
Yeah, imagine that. She believed that there was wrongdoing. So in good faith, she had to take some other measure to preserve that data, to uphold her federal responsibility, her duties as that clerk.
Under the law. Yes, she had a legal responsibility to preserve those records.
If she didn't do it, she could have been charged with federal crime.
And the trusted build is how they get around it, right? Because there's all this, technical stuff that they know that most people don't understand what it is. But essentially, they just erase the files because they say that you have to make room on the computer for other information, right? And basically, Dominion comes in and does whatever they do, and nobody knows because nobody reads code. Nobody's inside the machines.
Let's
Nobody's
drop
watching
it in really
them.
simple fact, right?
Yeah.
If you go take your phone down and you go, hey, I want to get this phone, I want everything transferred from this phone to that phone. We've all been through that, right?
Yeah.
Or a laptop or an iPad or whatever it is. You walk that device in there. The first thing you want to do is back everything up. They ask you, did you back everything up to the cloud?
Yeah.
They want you to back everything up, even though they tell you they can transfer all the information. Because why? Because things get lost. It happens. Digital things happen. Idiosyncrasies in the digital world occur. So Tina wanted to make sure there were no problems. She wasn't out to, seeking something. She didn't have an idea what she was looking for. She just wanted to do her job and do it correctly.
But she suspected that there was a problem because, I remember Tina told me that right after the election, she was getting all these calls from people in her district who were saying that they were concerned about the outcome of the election. Now, it was a red county. Trump had won. Ostensibly, there isn't any reason really to chase this, but there's something called the truth. And people want honesty and integrity in their elections. even when they get the outcome that they want, it still matters. And so she's getting all these calls and she's like, no, we got the result that we expected in a sense because Trump won. It wasn't, she said the numbers weren't quite what you would expect, but nevertheless, the outcome was. And so therefore, what are they talking about?
It didn't matter if the result was one you expected or didn't expect. The preservation duty of that clerk was to make sure it was preserved. And when anytime someone's going to do some update or change, or you can potentially lose something, trusted build, data file analysis, whatever, the first thing you should do is have an imaging to protect it. So it was a forensic imaging. That was it.
Yeah, but then what happened in Mesa County was when Sharona Bishop and other people started going door to door, they started discovering that, there's like a mental health facility where people, nobody voted and there's all these votes, or that there's multiple votes at one place, or that there's an old age home
but you never
where all
hear
these
that
people
part,
voted.
do you?
And that's what really, that's when Tina started to ask questions and go to Jenna Griswold, the Secretary of State, and the response that she got was odd.
Well, the response that she really got, honestly, is not far from that moment, was that the FBI raids her home.
Yes. That's right, which is a clear indicator that people don't want you asking questions that you really have a duty to ask.
Yeah.
She had a duty to ask those questions, and they can go after her for process. It's just like they'll create a process crime for anyone, right?
Yeah. Just like
Brett Tolman
12,
from Right on Crime, he always says, show me a person and I'll show you a felony.
Yeah.
Like he says, we've got so many laws governing so many things. They've criminalized just about everything under the sun that if you really want to go after someone for something, you can find it.
There's a way to put everybody in prison, every single American. There's something they're doing or have done that you could actually do that. And then the FBI comes up and says, have you ever looked through the window and seen, have you ever looked through the window of a woman? You're thinking, oh my gosh, people, no, I would never do such a thing.
Yeah.
And then they go, well, suddenly you lied. You've looked through a window of a store and seen somebody inside. That's a lie. It's as benign as that. It's so simple to get a lie. From the FBI, they say, have you ever done this or have you ever done that? And have you ever, right? And it's so broad, and then they twist things.
Yeah.
And they manipulate. And once they have twisted and manipulate just right, then all of a sudden they got you with a crime. They got you admitting, well, I didn't mean that. Well, you didn't mean. So then you did, in fact, do what we just said, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And that's how they do it, right?
Well, and also it's intimidating.
Horrifying. There's a doctor we're dealing with, and they went to him and asked him if he had ever done anything or been involved in certain things. And at the end of the day, they got him. The guy's done tens of millions of dollars a year worth of business. And it's over $6,000 of something he made up. The record wasn't exactly accurate, and that's why he's facing prison. But his crime was dealing in COVID. He was not prescribing the accepted narrative. He was doing ivermectin. He was doing the hydroxychloroquine.
Yep.
That's what it was.
And he's not the only doctor to face this.
No, Dr. Young, right? Who we both know is sitting in prison right now. Dr. Keith Moore, and on. And Dr. Artis was silenced, and Dr. Gold, and all. We can go down a list of doctors. Dr. Stella Emanuel, who, all of these people, this happened with COVID. It happened with Christians. It happened with the school board parents. It was an assault. And why? But you got to understand where this came from. Places like SPLC, Southern Poverty Law Center, and the Cruise, and the ones you talked about, but more so, George Washington University and Columbia University misused a $77 million grant that was offered up by the Obama administration when they had the House and the Senate, pressed through. That money goes straight out. And those people sent people into all 16 of our three-letter agencies. They sent people into members of Congress. They sent people, these were all interns, right? And these were the trusted interns that joined these programs that were being run by draft-dodging communist professors of the 60s, right? These individuals were trusted, tenured people at GWU and Columbia University running the program. They sent the interns out. Well, what this really amounts to is espionage into our government. It doesn't amount to a study. It was a study by those if you have the intent to overthrow the government and utilizing these children in this way. Then they shape and mold the children over the next 4 years, and they send them out. You notice how the age of the FBI and directors and people just dropped like a stone starting after
suddenly
Obama?
Everyone's very young.
Yeah, well, because they had to move out. Remember, Obama gets rid of all the generals and they fire all these people?
Oh, yes.
Well, yeah, it was because they needed to wipe the playing field clear of any conservatives.
And put young people who they molded in their image.
That's right. They came in their image in this communist manifesto type ideology, the Marxists and the ideologues, right? They come in, and now all of a sudden you have control of these agencies, and they're telling you, hey, this person's not on board with our agenda. They must be a domestic violent extremist. And that's where GWU and Columbia University developed.
Well, and then they turn to Southern Poverty Law Center and Media Matters for America, and they have them advise and write the algorithms and determine which are the keywords. What are you going after someone for? And then they, on top of that, at the same time, the other pillar of this is they get the FBI to go to create like the kidnap plot in Michigan.
But don't forget also
that was completely fake.
Like we exposed here in Fredericksburg with the event that you put together, we spoke at together 3 years ago. We showed how the FBI had just recently released, and DHS had released their new list of domestic violent extremist symbols. And
Yes.
remember the Betsy Ross flag was on there?
Yes.
And it was even the Bible, the cat and the cross.
and the George Washington.
Oh yeah,
The tree.
The tree of liberty.
Yeah.
Any of these, they were all signs of domestic violent extremism, and that was something that could move
Including,
you out.
I think, do I have the come and take it flag?
Oh, yeah, that was on there.
Oh, it's confirmed.
Oh, well,
there's the evidence.
I'm really glad to be sitting here with a fellow domestic violent extremist. I just don't.
Hey, I was listed by the Southern Poverty Law Center when I spoke at a Moms for Liberty event.
Congratulations.
Yes,
Thank
wasn't
you.
that kind of them?
Thank you.
So kind of them. So they really have it sewn up, on you're surrounded, because on the one hand you've got, so what you're talking about, the Obama administration gives $77 million grant to 2 universities, right? They then do a study, and in the name of that study, they put interns in different agencies inside the government, and they mold these interns. Who then go into those agencies and serve in positions of power.
Yes.
And these agencies are like the FBI, the Department of Justice,
DOD. I mean, it goes
Department
on,
of
right?
Defense.
Yeah, everything. You have all of our intelligence agencies, right? DNI, ODNI.
So now they've got their people everywhere. And we all know, you take a young person and you give them an opportunity, they haven't lived enough, really, to be cynical enough.
They knew not what they did.
They believed.
Yeah.
They're true believers.
Yeah.
When you're young and somebody else, I even remember, when I was young and I got a job at CBS, I was a true
that
believer.
was a long time ago.
It was 150 years ago. I know I'm looking great, right?
You do. It's amazing.
It's amazing. It's genetics.
Yeah.
It's just genetics.
You look great even for 35.
I know, seriously. Even for 20 years ago. Okay, so going back to this system they created, and then they literally run false flag operations inside the FBI, and they have groups, outside of that. They have academics and think tanks that provide the ideology, right, that supports what it is they're doing. And
They close the loop.
They do. They close the loop. And this is one very important part I want people to understand, is that I was looking at law enforcement bulletins for years, and they would literally have 1 or 2 or 3 items that related to Islamic terrorism that were actually real terrorist threats. And then they would have all these other things that were about the white terror threat, right?
Yeah.
And they were all screenshots from chat rooms that were very obviously FBI people inside those chat rooms who create that narrative.
Issue, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and then they report it to Southern Poverty Law Center, or Media Matters, and then they say, "Oh, you need to look for this. This is the real terrorist threat." You're right. They created a loop.
Yeah.
These are horrible people.
Yeah. Well, they mean to undermine Western culture, Western civilization. They mean to tear it all down. They are not a fan of capitalism, and for whatever reason,
They're not a fan of America or sovereignty at all,
no,
or
none of those
humanity.
things. They're globalists. They're ideologues. They have all kinds of other ideas about anything that we would hold dear as conservatives, as Christians, as just good Americans, people
How
that believe in
about
the
just as decent
Constitution.
people?
Decent individuals, decent human beings that give a damn about children, that give a damn about making sure that the future of our children is something that they could live, that you could even stomach, much less have an expectation of.
Or that tolerance should actually be tolerance, and liberty should actually be liberty. And it's really not a Democrat or Republican thing.
Yeah, they want to blur the line and create it. Yeah, no, I
Yes.
agree with you.
Okay, so
Not a partisan issue.
So now you're in American Rights Alliance, and you're trying to help people with significant cases, right? So what are you doing for Tina Peters?
Well, Tina Peters, so we came in, we entered, so I went to Peter and said, "Look, Peter, we got to take this case. It's Tina Peters. We need you
And
to
she's
come
a
in as lead
she
counsel."
truly
She's
is
in
a
prison.
hero.
She's in prison in Colorado. She's been there almost a year. Listen to this. You got to remember, so what most of America doesn't understand, she was denied bond. In Colorado, under Colorado law, you have to either prove to be too violent or you have to be a flight risk to not be let out on bond pending your appeal. That means the process between the time you're found guilty at the district court level, right, or the state, basic court level, and then you go into your appellate court system. This could be a year and a half before you get to your appeal, if it's even granted. And all Tina Peters was asking at that point is to be out on bond at home under the authority of the government. You have to supervision, et cetera, and check in and all those things, like even an ankle monitor, whatever, until the appeal was resolved, right? This judge in the courtroom in Colorado literally went on record, and a lot of people know this, but a lot of people don't, went on record and said Ms. Peters' speech was the danger. Her First Amendment protected speech, the idea she was allowed to hold, the things that she has the right to believe, it was her speech that created the reasoning that she must be locked up in a prison, in a Colorado prison, and not be allowed to be out until bail, pending appeal on a nonviolent crime. Who was harmed by what Tina Peters did? She did her job, and the judge knew that. This conviction is rife with impropriety.
It's outrageous.
The judge is a disgusting individual that he himself should be removed from the bench and be in prison probably for these types of actions. I bet if we were to venture further into his decisions, we would find a lot of this kind of nonsensical activity, impropriety from the bench. But this is what's going on. The fact that Philip Weiser and the group there in Colorado, the AG and Jenna Griswold.
The Secretary of State, Jenna Griswold, she's disgusting.
She's a disgusting individual. She's
a
another
disgrace.
partisan hack that is run
Disgrace.
by George Soros and others that absolutely should not hold an office. But this is what we get when you allow these people to infiltrate the United States. They knew they could never take us from outside. They had to take us from within. And that's where all this insanity is coming from, what's brewing up. So we see this in Tina Peters. Now we have, last week we had the oral argument on the habeas motion. Habeas corpus showed me the body, the opportunity to get her proven that she deserves to be out on bond, that the result of why she's there was the misappropriation of power by the judge, that what he did and actually going after her, this impropriety he exerted by saying that her First Amendment protected rights to her beliefs created the danger. This isn't a woman saying, I believe I should be able to shout fire in a crowded movie theater. This isn't a person saying take up arms against the government. This is a person saying, I did my job. There was a problem with the election or the data afterward, and I wanted to make sure we had preservation. That's her speech.
Yeah, and even if she let somebody use a badge that wasn't theirs, this hardly makes her a violent criminal.
Even if that's the case, but good faith again by the idea.
Yeah.
She knew that when she went up the chain of command, they gave order back down.
Yeah.
And said, no, don't do that. We're not doing anything. She had a duty, and she upheld her duty.
She had a duty to do it. And by the way, this is a woman in her late 60s, early 70s.
Yeah, Lara,
whose
69 years old.
69 years old, whose son was a Navy SEAL.
She's a Gold Star mother. He died.
Yes.
He gave his life in the line of service. And let me get this straight for the American people. This is something they need to get real right with. Her son's not there to fight for her. Her son's not here because he gave his life fighting for this country. And the American people should damn well be behind Tina Peters because she's already made that sacrifice. And her son, if he were here, he'd be fighting like hell for her. I'm certain of that. So I think every one of us owe it to Tina Peters, who's already made that sacrifice, to fight for her.
And to be clear, he wasn't on a battlefield when he was killed. He was doing an event for the Navy SEAL team that jumps out of planes and over an event, and he plummeted to his death in a stadium.
Yeah.
Yeah, which was a horrific, absolutely was in service, no doubt. I'm going to preempt all those, those idiots that will come after this and say, this wasn't. No, he served his country on the battlefield. He was deployed multiple times, and he had a stellar career, by the way, and an amazing young man. And Tina, still carries that pain.
How can you not? She's a mother.
Of course,
you lose a child, it's forever.
And by the way, and a wonderful woman. Really a brave woman. You just imagine that the pressure they put her under.
How many counties? So we got 260 counties in Texas. Yeah. How many people did that and preserved the data?
How many people had the courage to do that?
We had one in the
country.
entire freaking country that had the courage to do what Tina Peters did and say, wait a minute.
Yeah, she really is a hero.
I gotta say something about this. I want to preserve this.
And just to answer the question for people who say, well, why hasn't Donald Trump pardoned her? It's because it's a state case.
Yeah, so interestingly enough, in the reply brief that came just yesterday, it was filed last night, right? Or yesterday afternoon, there was a
So
reply
this
brief.
week, because this will go out on Friday.
Okay. So in the reply brief that was filed on Monday this week, right? In the reply brief filed Monday, what was that? The 27th, whatever.
Filed the 27th of July?
Huh?
28th. Okay.
In the reply brief filed on the 28th of July, the government, the state of Colorado, admits that there were certain federal aspects to what's going on, but they want to say, oh, we're going to hide this, right? They want to say, well, but it wasn't preserved in the case. Well, there's a little something coming for them there. So there's a comparative value that we came up with this morning, and the new filings in our reply will, I think, reflect some of that. So I think it's going to be very interesting what they've now done to themselves, and we've painted them into a corner, or they've more painted themselves into a corner, and there's more to come for them where this is headed. Donald Trump is going to be able to ultimately pardon Tina Peters. We are going to prove that she was doing her duty and that the supremacy clause is going to take effect here, and that she has federal immunity from the state prosecution at the end of the day for what they've done to her.
Because there are federal and state laws regarding the preservation of election records, correct?
Right. And the federal laws supersede, or they're supreme to, the state law. It's just like you can set the speed limit on the highway. The federal government can set the speed limit to 70. The state can't say the speed limit is now 85. It's not up to them. It's a federal highway, right?
Right.
Now the state can say, you got to slow down to 55 in this section in my state, and they can do that.
But you have to go through this process.
Well, but you can bring it down, but you can't take it up, and that's just where they've done, right? So they've nullified the federal part of this. Now, what's interesting is the state doesn't have the ability to assert that something fits the supremacy clause or assert something. They don't have that ability, right? They can't rule on that. Now, a judge could say, I believe there's a problem here. I believe that supremacy takes effect here. But a state judge can't rule definitively that this has happened, right? So this is where the process is so skewed, because it's all been in state court. Although it was led by the FBI, we know the DOJ was involved in this. There was a leadership role from that. What happened to Tina? The issue is if the state was ever just honest and just said, look, Ms. Peters did her job under the federal election. We may not like what she did or we don't agree with it, but she did her job. But they want to hide behind the idea that, well, this isn't federal court, this is state court, you did this. It's so subjective and it's so wrong.
And what do you mean by the supremacy clause? Just explain that.
Yeah, so the supremacy clause is the same thing that happened in like the Norma Jean Anderson et al. Case, or commonly known as the Colorado ballot case. Colorado says we want to take Donald Trump off the ballot in our state, right? And the supremacy clause, and it goes all the way through all the Colorado courts, right? You get all the way through the state court, and you get to the district court, and you get into the Supreme Court, and they rule against Donald Trump every time. Say, we can take you off the ballot. State's going to take you off the ballot. The Supreme Court, and that's even the liberal judges, all 9-0 decision on Norma Jean Anderson et al., right, comes back and says, no, you can't do that. There's one 14th Amendment, not a 14th Amendment for Illinois, not a 14th Amendment for Colorado, and not one for Texas. It's one single 14th Amendment. The 14th Amendment is the 14th Amendment, and it reigns supreme over all state laws for each and every single state. The state law is under the supremacy of the federal law in this case.
So is the issue here that you have to let this play out in the state court in order to end up?
Unfortunately, but in the habeas process, the judge was very favorable recently. So we do believe that that's going to be beneficial. We think that that's one of the processes. We also have another action that we're getting ready to file that one. So we are going to get multiple actions in. You're good. Yeah, we'll get multiple actions in play on the effort to assist Tina to get her where she needs to be into this federal court where Donald Trump can pardon her.
So another big case that you have is my friend James O'Keefe.
Yeah.
Who, man, that guy, he gets sued every time he turns around. He is, they've been trying to get him with death by 1,000 cuts, death by 1,000 lawsuits.
Yeah.
And James is formidable. He doesn't bow under the pressure, which is extraordinary.
I don't even know how it happened. Like, that was right after Tina. I'm telling you, if you don't think God's involved in this, it's weird. Because as soon as I come on at American Rights Alliance, next thing you know, I'm getting a call from O'Keefe like, hey, Treniss, what do you think about this? I'm getting sued by this, jackass Mark Zaid up in D.C. And he goes, I'm getting sued with this Jamie Menina case. Like, what do you think about this? Like, and he's running it by me. I'm like, well, I kind of saw it, hit the pavement. I don't really know much about it. Like, what's going on? And he goes, well, he's the Booz Allen contractor, the former FBI agent. And what do you think? Who would you recommend in D.C.? And I was like, well, ironically, so James, this is what's happening now. Glad you called.
And for people so that they understand, this is the investigation that O'Keefe Media Group did. They captured a Booz Allen contractor working for, I believe, the Department of Defense.
At the Pentagon, yes.
Yeah, at the Pentagon, and he was saying on camera that basically they're going to subvert and stop Donald Trump.
Yeah, any million ways that they could come after Donald Trump, the million cuts scenario, whatever they could do to stop Donald Trump, that this is what the guy says on camera. And they file a lawsuit. Mark Zaid files a lawsuit.
Mark Zaid, I have some history with Mark Zaid because guess who he represented? Was the GRS contractors in Benghazi, the guys who were on the ground for the CIA at the Special Mission Compound in Benghazi. And so when I was working on my Benghazi investigation for 60 Minutes, I was trying to talk to some of these guys, of course, right? Because they were firsthand eyewitnesses before they did the movie deal, before the 13 Hours came out and all the rest of it. And I managed to get hold of one of the guys. And he said to me, yes. It took me months and months and months. It was a big deal. And he said, yes, I will do an interview, but you got to talk to my attorney. Well, his attorney was Mark Zaid. Oh, so amazingly, his attorney wasn't returning my calls, and he was difficult to reach. And eventually, he returned my call, and he was like, yeah, I know, I'll get back to you. And then, of course, I never heard from him again. And I'll never forget a very, very good journalist. I was talking to him about, I can't get this guy. I finally got hold of one of these guys. He's agreed to do an interview, and his attorney is messing me around. And he said, who's the attorney? And then I told him, he started laughing. And he said, what do you know about this guy? And I said, well, apparently he's the go-to guy if you want to take on the CIA. And I said, and he said to me, well, isn't that funny? Have you ever looked at his record?
Has he ever beaten him?
Yes. And what do you find when you look at his record? No. Of course he's the go-to guy who is there if you want to take on the CIA, because what does he do?
Lose.
Or manages the process.
Yeah.
So what do? They manage the process. So the system that they've created is really one of narrative control. They know that it's got to come out. They know that these, how do we silence these guys? Well, we give them a book deal and we give them a movie deal that makes them heroic, gives them their 50 minutes of fame, and never, ever, ever answers the questions about Benghazi that are central to what were they doing there? What was this really about? How, who was really responsible, and so on and so on. So you get a superficial narrative, and then nobody else has a chance because when you go to a publisher or you go to a movie, a production facility or whatever, they say, oh, the Benghazi story's been done. So they've set the narrative, they've controlled it, they've done the damage control, and they've gotten rid of the threat. And Mark Zaid, in my experience, was an integral part of that process with Benghazi. So I wasn't surprised at all when I saw Mark Zaid. What happened right in 2000, after 2016, after Trump won, who was the guy that came out and said, we are the resistance. We will bring Donald Trump down at any cost, something along those lines.
Yeah.
It was Mark Zaid. So he revealed himself for who he really was.
Yeah. Well, so here we go again, right? So Zaid is back front and center representing Jamie Menina.
Who's the Booz Allen contractor?
Oh, he's much more than that, Laura. This is what's really interesting. So credit to the journalists out there, to our independent media people out there. Josh Redpill is the first place I saw this. He sent it to me. He's like, hey, you got to see this. So O'Keefe is dealing with this Jamie Menina guy who's, again, Booz Allen contractor, working at the Pentagon, trying to stop Trump. But he was former FBI. Interestingly enough, if it's not during the time he was FBI, right around, at least it's very interesting, that there was this DC Predator. You know how that show, what's it, To Catch a Predator?
To Catch a Predator,
with the guy that looks really old now that does that,
Where they go after pedophiles.
Yeah, right. Well, all I can tell you is there's a DC Predator episode with Jamie Menina in a home, and they come out and they're like, what were you doing here? I wasn't going to do it. You got to watch the episode. That's funny. I'll send it to you guys so you can share it.
where they set them up. They think they're going to meet a minor.
A person, Jamie Menina, apparently, according to this episode, looks as though to me, I can see he's entered this home, and then the DC Predator people pop out of other rooms and from behind the walls, kind of thing, and say,
A
"What are you
pedophile's
doing?
worst nightmare."
What are you doing here?" And he's, I'm not me, nothing. He's running to the door and he's grabbing his jacket and running out the door. This is the same guy. My question would be, is if he was working for the FBI still in 21, or rather he was or wasn't, if you, DC, caught a predator, if this really is true, why has this guy not been prosecuted?
How can you be on a defense contract if that's the case?
Well, who's doing the background checks for Booz Allen? Who's doing the background checks to be in the Pentagon? Is it accepted practice to be a pedophile and work at the Pentagon for Booz Allen? Is that an acceptable practice? I don't know.
Well, was he ever charged?
Well, that's the question. Is he ever charged? I don't know the answer to that either.
Because you are innocent until proven guilty. Although, if you're caught on camera,
if you're caught on camera there, you're caught on camera there.
That's
the
a little
evidence,
awkward.
it kind of speaks for itself,
But I
mean, there was a song about
assume
that.
he
Wasn't me, right?
maintains his innocence, right?
Well, I would assume. I don't know. Look, I haven't seen him ask the question. But I think what's going to be very interesting is they'll be having depositions here soon. I think that when you're talking about, he says that his character has been defamed by James O'Keefe, right? Well, I think your character has to be first established before you can claim that it's been impugned by one. So
wow.
I'm looking forward to
Is
Brent
this like
Day.
fish in a barrel, this one?
Well, look, so I've been working with Brent Day on this case since the beginning, who's working at Peter's law firm. The motions to dismiss were filed. The anti-SLAPP just went in last week. You'll be able to watch Jen Baker's covering this at Gateway Pundit. She's covering this case closely. She's working with us at American Rights Alliance as well. She's been there with me years at Condemned USA. So I'm excited to watch these things come to light that we're finding. And we wouldn't find it if it weren't, again, the independent journalists. We sure as hell didn't get it off of a CNN, ABC, CBS, or MSNBC interview of showing us that this happened.
Can't be that hard to find.
You'd be surprised how easy it really was once I just went looking. So I don't know. Like I said, I think you guys will enjoy watching.
Well, I'm glad that you're helping James because truly that man gets sued by everyone. They have not been able to, they've tried to put him in prison and that didn't break him. They raided his house with the FBI. That didn't break him.
Went after his organization?
They've targeted, yes, they took the organization that he created that was James O'Keefe, and not only that, but, he raised all the money for it. And, I'm sure they said he ate some pregnant woman's sandwich in front of her, and he used black cars. And no doubt, when you work closely with people, I'm sure there's things, some of them legitimate, that they can say about you. They can say it about all of us. I bet not
Lara,
everyone who worked for you loved you, right? Same with me.
Do you know how I met James?
How?
You're the one that drugged me to an event at Mar-a-Lago, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I went to an event with you at Mar-a-Lago.
Yes.
Right? And James and I were sitting there, and we'd already seen the movie. The movie was premiering. I can't remember, was it Into the Shadows?
Mike Smith's movie.
Yeah, Mike Smith, yeah.
Yeah, Into the Light.
Into the Light,
Great movie, by the way.
It was great. Mike Smith's movie was excellent.
Even though I'm in it. It's still a great, very important
it has
film.
its drawbacks, yes. But so
Watch intothelight.org. Go to intothelight.org. You have to see that
fantastic movie. So I had already seen it, right? So I'd already seen the quiet side behind the scenes there with Mike because we were all there at the event. But what was amazing to me about that is James and I were we ended up seated next to each other at Mar-a-Lago at the event. And we ended up sneaking out a little bit early because we kept talking. Like we had gotten this conversation about 501s and the stuff going on and having an organization. And we kept getting the because people that hadn't seen the movie and we were trying to whisper and it wasn't working. So we left. And about halfway through the movie, we left and because we'd both seen it. And we went to go have dinner, and we sat down at dinner, and then that's how we got to know each other. But it was the event that you and General Flynn got me in to go to the Mar-a-Lago event. So that was another thing that you were a connector of that's now become full circle in this with how O'Keefe and I are now working together through American Rights Alliance and what we're doing. James did a brilliant, he spoke out for American Rights Alliance, gave us something really nice to work with, a testimonial, if you will, I'm so honored that, he's doing that. He cares. Like, he cares about
He's a
the
real
future.
fighter. James is a real fighter. And, he's been a victim of the false narrative over and over again, or even just by omission, because people don't really know James. I mean, I did an hour-long piece with him for my series, No Agenda, for Fox Nation. And, they try to paint this picture of James as some far-right, activist who was born with a silver spoon in his mouth. And nothing is further from the truth. He grew up in an Irish, working class construction family, did a lot of construction at the weekends with his father and his grandfather. I mean, his grandfather would make him, do all the work by hand. He'd be peeling wallpaper off the walls until his fingers bled, in the freezing cold.
Maybe that's what we should have these people that have subverted the will of the country. That's what they should have to do, is peel wallpapers. I don't know.
As their punishment.
Yeah, as punishment. Yeah, we should.
Well,
the modern chain gang.
I really hope that you're successful on this case, because in spite of whatever people's personal feelings may be, it is important that the law should not be used as a weapon. Like Gateway Pundit, they published that video of the women pulling what were they, like, really boxes, not really boxes, but containers full of votes out from under a table in Georgia, and they were
Ruby
sued.
Freeman and Shay Moss.
Yes, and they were sued almost into oblivion for that, so they're trying to use the law to silence journalists. And when you're small independent publications, you're vulnerable.
Giuliani. Look what happened to Giuliani.
Exactly. Rudy Giuliani, who is another American hero, and another friend of mine, a great man. Love that man, actually. Yeah. He's amazing, Rudy. Doesn't deserve anything they've done to him.
No.
And the law firm he started when he became Trump's lawyer, I think after 2016, when Trump hired him, his own law firm fired him. And he didn't drop Trump and take care of himself and keep his position in the law firm. He said, no, I'm going to do the right thing. Yeah, another great man. So, okay, well, I know there's another case that you guys have taken that is kind of important to me, close to my heart, because it's parental rights and religious freedom. Tell me about the case out of California.
Look, I'm going to tell you that I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're a Democrat or a Republican. Any of these cases that we have, right? All of these cases center around people's rights. They center around constitutional rights. They center around duties. This case in particular, James O'Keefe, is a First Amendment case.
Yeah.
But Shayna Gaviola, this case is one that should disturb you. This is parental rights and religious liberties, as you said. So I would believe, and I think most parents would believe, that you have a right to send a child. If you want to send your child to public school, you have a right to send your child to public school.
Sure.
My 10-year-old child, 12-year-old child, 14-year-old child is not going to tell me where they're going to go to school or which bedroom they're going to sleep in.
Don't
or
be ridiculous.
If they're whether or not they're going to do the laundry or mow the lawn or take part in the household chores.
Well, for that part, your kid can say, I'm not going to school today. Really? No, come on.
Yeah, I mean, ironically, this day and age, you would get in trouble for truancy, right? After some period of time.
Correct.
So your child doesn't run the household because that's not the way it works. Parental rights, we have the not only right, but responsibility to supervise our children, right?
You're supposed to be in charge.
Yeah, because you can be held accountable if not. So think it in these terms. So this mother is going through a situation with her son. She discovers that some things are happening with her son and that she finds to be inconsistent with her beliefs, right, going on in the school. And it's being said that the part of this could be something to do with even maybe transitioning or something of this nature, that the school is suggesting these things, right? Not necessarily that the child is attempting to or trying, but that's what's being suggested here by and Ms. Gaviola has some interesting points to make about this. Now, what I would be concerned about is that every parent should have a right to make the choice of where their child attends school and what they're subjected to. I think there was a time where we would recognize that if a parent didn't want their child to take part in the sexual education course at the school, then they wouldn't have to allow that. They can choose not to. If if they didn't want their child to take part in some religious services at school, they didn't have to, right? Or say, so help me God, right? We made special exceptions and parents had the right to these things. Maybe that didn't fit their religious beliefs. So religious beliefs, parental rights have all long been a part of this for both sides of the aisle. Yet here we are now where a case like Shayna Gaviola, she sent her child to a Christian school in Missouri to escape the policies and procedures and what she didn't agree with that were going on in the state of California.
In a public school.
She's now, this is the child trafficking that the Biden administration wants to attack. She's been attacked by the Department of Justice. This is an ongoing case held over from 2021. As soon as Biden administration and DOJ came in, they have prosecuted this woman. She's being prosecuted for transporting her child across state lines, child human trafficking.
To go to a boarding school in Missouri.
To send the child to Christian school.
I just, how does this even come onto the radar of law enforcement? Like, this is so far removed from anything that law enforcement should be involved in.
Because the child was trying at 14 years, the ripe old age of 14, according to the documents, was trying to be emancipated.
Emancipated.
The child wanted to be emancipated.
So who's backing the child in that? Because no child figures that out on their own.
Well, seemingly, according to Ms. Gaviola and what I've seen, what I've been able to read about this, and what's very concerning to me is at 14 years old, where can you work? What full-time job can you hold and attend school and pay your way, right? It's just kind of crazy. There are rules about this. Not only that, but she had a custody order from the state of Tennessee. I don't remember anywhere in this docket do I see anywhere where the California is properly dealing with the custody order. The judge who originally issued a ruling on this initial piece had to recuse herself later because it was discovered that there was a connection from within the judge's court that had to do personal connection within this family of the Gaviola family.
But I'm just trying to understand. Is like the child, she sends her child to boarding school in another state, and the child didn't decide, I want to be emancipated on their own. Who put this idea in the child's head?
I don't know. It's a great question. Now we're seeing that the child is now suing the mother, right? Like for this. And what's crazy to me
and who's paying for that lawsuit?
Well, that's a great question.
Because the 14-year-old isn't paying for that lawsuit.
That's a great question. Well, he's a little older now. So great question. He's now 20, right? This has been going on 6 years, since 19. This has been ongoing.
Wow.
And here we are still involved. This is still going.
This would absolutely break my heart as a mother.
It should. Look, Shayna Gaviola is facing prison time. She called me, and you know how she found me? This is the craziest thing. Her judge is the same judge that Ben Martin, the J6er, had. He's fully relieved of his case, right? He is out, right? He was able to get out, but his judge is the judge that oversaw his prosecution, his conviction, all these things, right?
And didn't want to release him after he was pardoned.
And refused to release him after his pardon. She abstained from making a decision. She finally recuses herself from the case after Mr. Martin sat there in prison for over a month. The chief judge immediately steps in and signs the release order for Mr. Martin, releases him. He goes home, right? But he's still on supervised release by the court, supervision of the court.
Which
right?
is also a violation of the pardon.
Well, you're damn right it is. And you're damn right that is. Now, so here's what else happens, right? This is the same judge that rules, get this, you're going to love this. This judge rules that ICE has to have a warrant when making an arrest. Suddenly, law enforcement has to have a warrant to make an arrest. ICE is a law enforcement agent. If I walk out of here and I go throw a rock through a window on the way out of here, I'm going to be arrested. The law enforcement doesn't need a warrant to arrest me. They have probable cause. They just arrest me. They saw something happen. The same thing was happening with ICE. They saw the person that fits the description that broke the law. They got arrested. You're walking down the street, you got an active warrant for you. That's what happened. Any of these reasons, right? This is the same maniacal judge that we're now facing in the Gaviola case. We faced her with Ben Martin. Trump faced her in this. She's already been overturned on this ludicrous ruling. And now we're facing her here with Ben Martin, or with Shayna Gaviola's case. Now we face this judge with Shayna Gaviola's case.
Which is in which state?
This is in the Eastern District of California, Fresno. So George Pallas is another ARA attorney, formerly Condemned USA attorney, American Rights Alliance attorney. George Pallas is representing this case. We had to move heaven and earth to get the previous defense counsel off of the case. You're going to love this. So defense counsel previously had made some significant omissions to Ms. Gaviola that I discovered during my investigation at her behest. She immediately wanted to change counsel after this. I was very disappointed to find what I found in that case, and that's going to be glaringly obvious that there was some, maybe not everything was quite, maybe counsel wasn't exactly being honest with Ms. Gaviola after all of these years. But I have a reason why I suspect that, Lara. So may I? You're going to love this. This gets even better. It's going to go deeper here. This is going to knock your socks off. Michael Tierney, you can't make up the name. This is the AUSA prosecuting the case. Michael Tierney, who's prosecuting this case of Miss Gaviola. Here's what you're going to love about this case. He sees Miss Gaviola in an establishment in the evening, approximately 8 p.m., 8:30 at night. He approaches Miss Gaviola, stands next to her chair, and starts hitting on her.
Is this a bar?
Starts hitting on her, right?
Yeah.
I want to say, look, it's an establishment that's open in the evening. She's there having dinner with friends and sitting at the bar. He approaches this woman, the defendant that he's prosecuting, right? That he's the AUSA on the case, and starts talking to her. And she says, what are you doing here? Like, what is going on? She's creeped out. He's leaning up over near her chair. She's creeped out. He's trying to hit on her. And she says, you can't talk to me. You've spent like the last years of your life trying to destroy mine. Like, what are you doing here? Like, this is weird. He says, I think we can talk as long as we don't talk about your case. Witnesses to this event, here it gets better. She's disgusted, feels dirty, like, I can't believe this guy's talking to me. She gets up and goes to the restroom. She comes out of the restroom only to find he's followed her to the restroom. He's outside the restroom. He says, hey, guess what? I have Agent Snow on the phone. This is the FBI agent that raided her home, right?
Raided her home.
Mm-hmm. The FBI agent that raided her home, right? After she had sent the child to boarding school in Missouri. And she's like, you got to be kidding me. Like, I'm being threatened here. Like, what's going on? She's now scared to death, right? She goes, collects her stuff, gets her friends. I got to go. I'm leaving. She goes outside.
And the case is still active at this point.
The case is still active. They're prosecuting her. This is absolutely happening. Listen to this. And the witness statements agree with all this. Get this. It gets better. Michael Tierney, the AUSA, that should be removed. I don't know where my Justice Department is. I don't know what's going on. Where is the Civil Rights Division? Where's Harmeet Dillon? We've got a new U.S. attorney in the Eastern District. This person should immediately stop this prosecution. This guy should be removed, sent for disciplinary action, if not ever practice law again. Certainly not for the government, right? And absolutely, this case should be dismissed, and we should move on. Ms. Gaviola should move on with their life. Now, here's what we have that's going on. He then approaches her outside in the parking lot and says, Ms. Gaviola, like he's thinking, well, I don't know what he's thinking, but what's interesting, and says, hey, you need to take this call, and puts Ms. Gaviola, the defendant, on the phone. This is the prosecutor handing him her phone. Imagine this, and says, take this call. It is her defense counsel. It's 10:30 at night. Is this to first hit on her, then cover your tracks, drive some fear? Maybe we should have some interaction. I don't know what the guy's doing here. I'm not sure. I can't speak to it. What I can say is his conduct should have been reported to the court. Both her previous defense counsel and Mr. Tierney should have reported this conduct to the court. I don't know an attorney in the land that I've talked to about this case that even believes it. And when you show them what, they're like, oh my, this really happened. We have this guy dead to rights. This is going to happen. This is going to come out, right?
So what does her defense counsel say to her?
He says to her later, well, that was rather unusual. Well, do you get this?
Was he just say hi?
Look,
what was the point?
I don't want to get into the detail. I want to give away too much. So I'm just telling you, this is what's been exposed so far. So we'll talk about this.
And by the way, what did the FBI agent say when he was on the phone? Snow.
Why didn't Agent
Snow.
Snow come forward and say, hey, listen, we're calling a defendant here from an establishment. Did she make a report? I want to know when the date of her report was filed that this conduct took place, that she's aware of. Who's her superior that addressed this? Who in the DOJ took a look at this? Why didn't Mr. Capozzi, her defense counsel, do something to engage in this? Did they put this on the record in the court? Because we can't seem to find it. So my question is, why is this case still ongoing? It has any number of problems that have gone on here that are inconsistent with the rules of professional conduct for an officer of the court.
A mother has the right to send their child. Mother and father have the right to send their child to any school they want to send them to.
Happens all the time. Happens all the time. Children are sent against their will to boarding schools and other things. Wayward children.
All the time.
And I'm not suggesting that this child was wayward. Just there were some things happening here. This needs to be seriously looked at. This case, in my opinion, the DOJ is operating inconsistent with Donald Trump's directive. He's made a very clear directive that they were going to uphold parental rights, religious liberties.
That's right.
Donald Trump has given a very clear directive to the Department of Justice and the Attorney General's office that they would uphold religious liberties and they would uphold parental rights and they would stop the abuses and the assaults that happened. Yet this case still goes on. I think he can't know everything, right? He gave the directive, and this is A.G. Bondi's position. She needs to get involved here. She needs to stop the prosecution of Miss Gaviola. She needs to get this AUSA Michael Tierney in line. She needs to get this guy by the ear and drag him around like a mother should, right? And get this guy dealt with for the violation of the rules of professional conduct. The U.S. attorney there in the Eastern District should immediately dismiss this case, and Miss Gaviola should go on with her life, because her other children are all going to testify that she's done a fantastic job of raising children. It's interesting that the other ones are all doing so well and they're all so happy. And we have one child that wanted to be emancipated that is now so full of discontent. I'm very sorry that this child's upset. I'm a young man now, I suppose. But the reality is that we cannot have a prosecution of a mother trying to do the very best she can by her teenage son.
Well, Treniss, there are going to be a lot of people listening to this who are going to want help with their legal cases. I know you can't take every case that comes your way. I know that these things are challenging, but where can people find you? Where can people find you if they want to bring, if they want to at least find out if you'll consider helping them?
Look, so there's one other realm that we've been able to help a lot of people here. You know, we're handling the pardons for Shane Lamond. We're handling the pardons for the remaining people, the majority of the remaining people that haven't received a pardon.
For January 6th.
Peter Tickton is uniquely, I think we're uniquely positioned as American Rights Alliance to be able to wave the banner of injustice over the cases that we have experienced, that we can see.
And by the way, good for Don Jr. I have to say he deserves credit for that, because there's no shortage of, media articles attacking Trump's sons for anything you can think of.
Oh, heaven forbid. But look,
and,
there's no
and
shortage.
Here you have an example of something where it didn't feel right to him to profit out of that. And that speaks to character, and that should be acknowledged.
I want to do this. I would like to personally thank Don Jr. for doing this, to creating this opportunity for the people that are truly in need. So many people.
Don't suck up now.
No, I would want to thank.
I'm just kidding. Okay, go ahead.
No, I want more money. Fuck up.
I know you need more money. Don Jr. Treniss needs more money. Peter and Evan and Treniss need more money.
No, in all seriousness, though, I mean, it was a great gift for a startup and enabling us there. There's going to be more to be done, and we're definitely going to need more resources on that. But I am very grateful that this opportunity, because honestly, it's given me the opportunity to go do something that I really care about. It's given me the opportunity to work with people like Peter and Evan and all of us to move forward together.
And fight injustice for people who, let's face it, I mean,
these people would never be able to afford this.
Never.
No.
Lawsuits are unbelievably expensive. Most of the time, the state wins.
Oh.
Right. So, and the stress of it, everyone will tell you don't sue because the stress of it. But there are times where principles are worth fighting for. I mean,
our children are worth fighting for. The Constitution is worth fighting for. The rights of American citizens and the future of this country are all worth fighting for. And that's what American Rights Alliance is going to do. We're going to continue to uphold those things. We're going to continue to make sure that we go forward with a message that says we will not be beaten into submission by those that will abuse the law and operate with injustice.
And those who will take the law and turn it into a weapon against the people it's supposed to protect.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you're in the fight. I wouldn't hesitate to turn to you. Hopefully I'm not going to need that. Please. I don't need a lawsuit to deal with. But I'm ready, just in case anyone thinks, that there's a weak spot there. No, there isn't.
Yeah.
Okay, so where can they find American Rights Alliance? Direct people to...
AmericanRightsAlliance.org.
Okay.
It's very simple.
Are you on X?
Yeah, I'm on X. So I'm still there at Treniss at Condemned USA.
Yeah.
The American Rights Alliance does have X. We have...
a website?
Yeah. I don't know. I have to give it to you in the lower thirds. I can't remember. They just got the social set up on there. So they just got it done. So
all right. So you anybody can find you, Treniss Evans at American Rights Alliance.
So look, you can email me. It's very simple. You can just email us. Look, if you have a case, you have a reason for a pardon, you think that you are deserving of recognition or there's an injustice that's occurred, simply email us at info@AmericanRightsAlliance.org. info@AmericanRightsAlliance.org.
info@AmericanRightsAlliance.org. Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. That's it for this episode of Going Rogue with Lara Logan. Please, you know what to do. Like, share, subscribe, and do, whatever you can to support independent journalism. It takes a lot. It takes a great team sitting around me to put this together, and we can't do it without you. So LaraLogan.com, support us in any way that you can. And thank you so much for watching.